Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, coming to you from a remote studio, but of course, Jeff is back in our studios at the Capital Region International Airport, and we're running here, there, and everywhere. As a matter of fact, we'll find out where our guest is. Jim Benedict joins us. He's a managing director at PNC Private Bank and a real expert on business succession and transitions. So, Jim, it's kind of interesting. First of all, welcome to the show. Sorry,
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
This is an ongoing, interesting observation, and maybe you can correct it. But I always see these family-owned businesses as never as big a percentage as they are. Talk about that, because there's more of them than we realize.
Yeah, the bulk of the wealth in the United States is held in closely held business owners, and one of the challenges is that they're illiquid. And there's going to be, depending on which research firm you listen to, 70% over the next 10 years or 60% over the next six are going to change hands. So we're expecting a $10 trillion in that neighborhood change of wealth in the United States over the next 10 years. And so people think of being wealthy as having liquid assets. And while that's true, the ultra high net worth is held in closely held businesses.
Well, it's interesting. All of us small business people, we're kind of like asset heavy, you might refer to it. So, it counts as cash on the sheets, but not always there. So, despite kind of being a major driver of the U.S. And local economy, certainly, it's not uncommon for family businesses to cease operation after the first generation. I've seen it mostly the third generation, and I'll tell you in a while. But is that accurate?
I think it is. I mean, some of it's an adage, and some of it we see a lot of that. And there's a couple of reasons why. First is failure to plan for succession at all. I have seen clients in their late 80s without any kind of estate planning and transition planning. So they need to plan and clearly communicate the plan to the next generation. Delays in tax planning can create compression later on in life. So certain ways of transferring assets, you're required to live a certain amount of years. And when you're 89 years old, your life expectancy isn't more than 4 or 5 more years. Diluted ownership, which is really where I think most people think this comes from. And that is if you think about everybody replacing themselves. So you've got mom and dad in the first generation, then they've got two children that have two children. And over time, the ownership gets diluted and the decision making gets diluted. And that has an impact too. And then finally, confusing equal with fair. And we see this a lot with closely held businesses. Mom and dad, they want to treat every child equally, but one child might be in the business and one child might not. If you give each child an equal share of the business, the one in the business is making capital allocation decisions about the business. The one not in the business wants a cash distribution, and those are conflicting priorities. And so it's better to figure out other ways of treating the children equally and fairly, other than giving them equal shares of the business when one's not involved.
You talk about the 5 Ds. And when you're done, I'm going to give you a sixth D that I have seen. But go ahead. This is this is 5 of the reasons that they fail.
They do, and it's death. Well, mine are you see different versions: death, disability, divorce, disagreement, departure. I'd be interested in hearing what your D's are. The biggest reason is that they fail to plan for those events. 50% of businesses go through a transition event unexpectedly because of one of those 5 events. And the best way to manage that is to have discussions when you found the business with your partners about what's going to happen in those events and document that in a buy-sell agreement that is both updated on a regular basis and is funded in some way. Often it's with some type of life insurance policy. Business owners really need to be proactive. So for planned transitions, they should be planning as early as possible, so that they have a plan, and that plan is going to evolve. So planning is not a one-time event; it's more circular. It's not linear. So they need to to plan early so they can preserve their options, and their options will probably expand as the business progresses as a going concern.
So my sixth one is disinterest because I have seen, and especially in the third generation, they're too far removed from the passion that built the building. It's just been a cash cow for them. And sometimes it's not a favor to give the family business to a family member. They may not want it, you know. Listen, we got about 30 seconds left. This regret, seller's regret, I
Mhm.
see that too. Like I said, 30 seconds, but if you could expound on that a little bit.
Well, the research is in the range that they have regret within a year, and it's not because they don't have enough money. It's most often because they don't have a plan for what they're going to do when they transition out of their business. What gives them meaning? So spend time in advance of transitioning out of your business with your family about what's that mean to you? What's going to give your life purpose? Because you're no longer going to be the person walking into the business on Monday morning.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Hey, Jim Benedict, Managing Director at PNC Private Bank and expert on business succession and transition. Thanks for sharing with us. We appreciate it, bud.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
All right, you have a good day. You're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. I'm Chris Holman. We'll be back.